Hello and welcome to the Employee to CEO podcast. I am your host, Monique Nicole, and I'm super excited that you're here. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that I believe is the most important thing, and not only just the most important thing, but the very first thing that you need to attend to when you are looking to start a business. And so we're going to dive into that topic today, and that is all about how to identify and attract your ideal client. Now, you may have heard this time and time again. I'm sure you probably sat on a webinar or watched another podcast about this topic. And so there's a lot of information out there about this. But what I want to really focus on today is talking about the things that you actually need to do in order to really do this well. And so we're going to dive into this because really the idea of this is all about, you know, knowing your ideal client and really getting to know who you are designed to serve. And I don't I don't believe that there is any successful business who has not got this right. And so if you want to be successful in your business, this is the part that you have to get right. And it's the part that I think a lot of people skip over because it's just one of those things where we kind of think we know who we're supposed to be helping or serving, but we really don't do the work to kind of go in and really identify who they are and how you can best serve them. And I think that makes the difference between, a mediocre business, meaning, you're making money, but you're not getting into those 6 and 7 figures. And so this is the most important, but just also the first thing that you want to do. So, knowing your ideal client really can make all the difference in the success of your business. And so the question is, but once you've now decided to do this and put some time into this, the question is, how do you identify them, right? And then once you do identify them, how do you attract them to your business? So we're going to dive into that today. And so let's put on our seatbelts and get ready. So, what I love about this topic is, it is really, it requires a little bit of research. And so, there's a couple things that I want to share with you, some questions that you can start to ask about your ideal client who is out there. Okay. These are not just fictitious people that we're going to make up. If someone's ever told you, just make it up, right? No, we're making up their profile, but we are getting to know the person who you're going to be serving in the future. And so, we want to do that in a very strategic way so that we make sure that we do this well. So, first things first is identifying your ideal client requires some introspection. Okay. So, this is not the fun stuff. There's a podcast where I talk about, you really have to do a lot of things sometimes as an entrepreneur that you don't want to do. All right. And this is a lot of times, I think, why people skip over this because it's not the fun and sexy thing to do. It requires research and requires some work. But if you're willing to do the work upfront, I promise it'll pay off in the back end. Okay. So the first thing that we want to look at is asking some key questions. Now, I have a checklist of questions that I provide for my students and members in my coaching program, the Employee to CEO program. Particularly, we have two programs, the employee to founder course and then the employee to designer course. And so I provide them with a list of these questions. And so there's a kind of like a more robust list, and I will give you some details at the end on how you can get a copy of that. But today I want to focus on some of the top questions that I really recommend that you do some thought around, put some thought around, and then you also ask yourself, okay? Because at the end of the day, this is your business, which means that you are in control of the services that you offer or products that you offer, and in turn, who you're going to be working with and serving. And so you really have to think about for yourself, like, okay, who is this person and how do they align with my business? So we're going to do a little bit of introspection, and then also you're going to also need to do some research around your ideal client. All right. So the first thing is as we talk about this topic of how to identify and attract your ideal client, the first question you want to ask is who benefits the most from what you offer? Okay. So, who benefits the most from what I offer? Now, this question is important because this is going to really help you to make sure that you understand and clarify, what do you offer? Right. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I see a lot of our members that I've coached and I work with. They really haven't gotten really clear on what do they do? Like, what do you offer? What service do you offer? What product do you offer? What does it do? Right. And this is really going to help you once you answer this question. It will help you to make sure that you are aligned with the right audience, with the right ideal client. Okay. So first you got to figure out, like, who's going to benefit from what you have to offer, right? Perfect example, right? I am a business coach. And when I first started coaching, in 2016 was when I started the employee to designer program. I was very clear on who my ideal client was, right? It was interior designers, aspiring interior designers who are looking to start a business. Now, I had a mix of, and I still do have a mix of different, um, you know, clients and types of interior designers. Some of them, I say the majority of them are just starting out, meaning they have the idea and the desire to start a business and they want to understand how to build their business from the ground up, right? So that's a very different audience than an interior designer who has been in interior design for 20 years, right? They've already had some learned habits. They've built their business, right? They've had probably some bumps in the roads, as we all do as entrepreneurs, but they have, they have experience in starting the business. So what I would coach that person on, that type of designer who's more seasoned, will look very different than what I would coach, an emerging interior designer on, right? Because their needs are different, right? So you have to be very clear on what are you offering and who's going to benefit the most from it. So in my case, in my this example that I shared, an emerging interior designer, the benefits that they get from taking my course or working with me one-on-one in private coaching is that they get to understand and learn the foundations of starting a business. They get the blueprint, the full roadmap on how to start a business from the ground up and to really kind of, fast track their momentum and their success because in my program, right, it really is a blueprint. Like I take you through step by step how to build your business and get it off the ground, get it launched, and get paying customers coming into your business. That's really the launch pad. Like that's the idea is to launch pad your business, right? Now, again, benefits of someone who's more seasoned, like they're not going to want to know, how do I go and set up my LLC, right? They already have an LLC, right? They're really probably not going to be interested in, like, how do I set up my business bank account, right? How do I manage my taxes? Because they've been doing these things, right? Their questions may be more geared around, or the benefits that they might get from my coaching or my program may be in reference to, how do I scale my business? How do I attract more of, maybe their business has shifted and they're providing different types of services. And they're like, how do I go after this new target audience? Right. So the needs are different. And so that's why you have to be super crystal clear on who are you serving and what are the benefits that that you offer. What are the benefits that you offer that you're going to provide for them? Okay. Now, number two, and if you're taking notes, I like to put these prompts up so that you can take notes and you can see what I'm saying. So the second question you want to ask what problems or needs does my product or service solve? Right? Meaning, what is the challenge that your ideal client has? Like, what's their problem and how do you solve it? Okay. So this one, again, this takes some some thought, right? Because you got to think about, okay, based on the product or service that I'm offering or I'm planning to offer, right? What's that what's that problem that it's solving for them? Okay? Now, this is interesting because I remember, while I was doing my research, and I've done a ton of work, and you also have to understand, you know, in regards to myself and in learning how to attract my ideal client over the years, I come from the background of advertising. Most of you know, if you've watched any of my podcasts, you know my story. I come from the advertising and marketing world, right? I worked in advertising for over 10 years. And, we had really like robust systems. I remember like whenever we would do a new product launch, we would we had actually already invested in this program where it like, gosh, it, it really like breaks down different demographics and, where people live and, different types of personas and all of that. Right. And we're going to get into that. But it really kind of does it for you. It really kind of gives you statistics and, research and all this stuff. And I would have to like sift through this stuff and really learn who our target audience is so that I can put together a digital marketing campaign, right? Because you got to know who you're targeting in order to put a marketing campaign together, right? So that's a whole nother conversation because you can't buy Facebook ads or Instagram ads if you don't know who you're targeting. Well, you can, but you're going to lose your money. You're going to waste your money. So I say all that to say, in my world, I used to do all this research. And when it really came down to, I mean, yes, these systems were really robust and it's not something probably I would recommend that you use because they're really expensive. Like I think one system was like upwards of $20,000, right? Because what these systems do is they've tapped into all of these other systems that track our behaviors, right? So I'm going to give you a quick little lesson. Um, Back in my advertising days, I remember I was kind of in that era of when digital marketing was becoming very popular. And we saw a lot of advertisers shifting their advertising dollars from spending it in more traditional forms of marketing, like billboard ads and commercials. And yes, they still do that, especially around, big events like the Super Bowl and things like that. But you'll notice you'll always see the same advertisers because they're usually the only ones that can afford it, right? Like a 60-second spot or a 30-second spot is over several $1,000,000. So not everybody can play in that arena, right? But for the average business, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, even large corporations, they would you know they would advertise, and so we would basically track the behaviors of people. So if you go on a website and you buy some shoes, well, guess what? This whole, during the time that I was working in the industry, it was a big thing where they would place a cookie, right? You heard of a cookie on your website or your phone, right? So when you go to that website, it places a cookie, and then that cookie basically is data that would be sold to all of these advertisers, and they could basically track your behavior, not track you personally, but your behavior. And so they know when you go back and you are looking for that pair of shoes, and then guess what? When you go on a different website, maybe you go on Yahoo, they're going to show you a shoe ad. Like, if you've ever been on just a random website and where there's ads, and you're not on a shoe website, for example, but you're on, I don't know, a grocery, website, maybe you're on Whole Foods or something. And then a shoe ad pops up. You ever wondered why that happens? Well, it's not by coincidence. It's on purpose. And so that was just like this whole phenomenon about behavioral targeting that started, probably about 15 years ago. And we saw all these advertisers shifting their dollars. And the reason why is because what we realized was that people weren't just consuming information and data by traditional forms of marketing like they used to, right? We're very multifaceted now. Sometimes people are on their phones, they're watching something on TV, and they're in front of a computer. They're consuming information much more rapidly, and in a larger capacity. And so these advertisers want to make sure that they're getting all the eyeballs, they're getting in front of people. So that's just a short little lesson. I say all that to say, right? You have to be very clear on what problems you solve, right? And what are the products and services that you're using or providing to help people, so that you can really get to know them, right? Because yes, we have all of these tools and things like that as far as advertising and creating ads on Facebook, but um, it really gets down to, okay, what need are you making or meeting? Excuse me, what need are you meeting, and what problem are you solving? Okay. Okay. Next one is, what demographics does your product or service appeal to? Okay, so demographics are, things like where do they live, and um, things like that. Their whereabouts, their location. Okay, and not just location, but age and gender and all the things about the person. Okay. Where, who are they basically? Right. And so you have to understand, like, who are they? Who would be interested in your product or service? And this is really going to help you kind of like paint that mental picture of who this person is, so that you can target them as you start to build your marketing and your business. Okay. All right. Next one is, where does my ideal client spend their time, online or offline? Now, I love this one because this one you can have a little fun, right? So you know, I gave you some context at the beginning of this podcast that you're going to have to do some research. Okay. And so with this question, it's all about really thinking about and doing some research, but also having a little fun and really I like to say, going where your customer is or your ideal client is, right? One of the things I used to do, I'll give you an example, is uh, years ago, I would go to, I knew that my ideal client, if you will, was a business person or has aspirations to become a business person. So there's certain caliber of person, right? And so I really thought about, like, okay, where would my ideal client hang out? And so I know one of the things that in my community that I learned from my community of members in my coaching program is that most of them are women. We do have some men, but the women, they're in here strong. And a lot of them, like a lot of the same things that I do, actually, ironically. And you might find that. And one of the things they like to do is they like to like go to wineries and go to just really nice places that make them feel good with a great ambiance. And so like I love going to like jazz shows. And so what I would do, I lived in New Jersey and I lived in New York City. And so what I would do is I would network, right? So I would go out to go to a winery, or I would go to a nice jazz, club or lounge or something like that, where I knew that my ideal client also enjoyed going to. Right. And that's the fun part, is that not only do you get to have some fun and, enjoy different experiences, but you also get to meet your clients where they are. And so I really highly recommend you do that. Once you have a good idea of where they like to spend their time and what they like to do. Sorry. Um, you know, really think about what is it that they enjoy, right? And then meet them where they are. Because I can't tell you how many clients I have, ended up working with based off of like meeting them at an event, or like I mentioned, a winery or somewhere that I also enjoyed going, and they just happened to be there. Or not just happened, but they were there, right? Because I did my research and really understood where they spend their time. Okay. So if you're thinking about finding out how they spend their time offline, you want to think about like, what websites do they frequent? Are they into their managing their finances? Maybe Yahoo Finances somewhere that they go. Maybe they are into cooking, right? So maybe they are or maybe they're like foodies or, health conscious. So maybe they are going to Whole Foods. So think about where they spend their time online. And that's going to help you in the long run, because what that will do is you're able to remember I was talking about those ads earlier. Once you know where they spend their time online, you'll be able to know where to run advertising. So if they're on Instagram or maybe they're on Facebook, right? Maybe they're on one or the other, maybe they're on both, right? But you want to really understand so that you know where to spend your advertising dollars offline and offline and online. Okay. Now, your advertising dollars or your marketing dollars may be spent having dinner at a restaurant that your ideal client frequents, or maybe a club or event that your ideal client likes to attend, right? So you spending money going out, maybe having dinner or what have you, that is your ad spend. That's your marketing dollars that you're spending, right? In the expectation that you're going to meet your ideal client. So those are some examples of how to really think through this question of where does my ideal client spend their time online, and offline. Okay. And then the last one is, this one's really important, is all about what are the values and interests of your ideal client. Okay. So, what are the values and interests of my ideal client? Meaning, what do they value? Like, what do they care about? What is really important to them? Are they a part of charities? Maybe they are dog lovers and they love dogs, right? Maybe they are, big, maybe they're vegans and they're big into veganism, right? So, what are the things that your ideal client values? Because this is also going to help you to understand, like, what do they care about? What do they think about? What do they invest their time and money in? Um, and it'll help you again as you're putting together your marketing plan to say, like, oh, okay, these are the things that are important to them. So maybe they're, members of this organization. Maybe I can partner with them and share my products and services with them to kind of get the word out, right? So it really, like, all of this really stems into the marketing of your business. And the reason why, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is so important is because it's a domino effect, right? In business, when you do one thing right, like something like this, like identifying your ideal client, right? It affects the next thing that you do in your business. Because the next thing that you would do once you're clear on your ideal client is you'll start to put a marketing plan together to attract them or get in front of them, right? And I always say, I don't know that I like that word attract, because I truly believe that if you build your business the right way and you get clear on who you're designed to serve and everything lines up, your products and services provide a solution for them. Like, I truly believe that your ideal clients will find you, right? Because they can sense and they can see, especially if they go to your website, like if you're the person for them, and I'm going to do a whole nother podcast on building and designing a website that converts and that attracts your ideal client, because there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. I see so many of, clients that I've worked with in the past, start and come into our program, and we actually design websites and we provide branding and marketing services in our, in our program. But we come in and we start doing some work on, like, identifying their ideal client and researching, and they've already done a website. And then I'll go and look at their website and it's like, you could tell they did it themselves, and like, no shade, but like, you can tell that there's no rhyme or reason to the structure of the site. The content doesn't speak to, doesn't align with what they offer, right? And all these things matter, because what happens is, like, if you've ever heard that saying, you get, one time to make a good impression, like the first impression is the most important impression, right? Something like that. Well, you get my drift, right? So it's important, because if you don't get this right, you can attract 1 million people to your website tomorrow. And if nothing resonates with them, if your products and services don't align with what, you're talking about on your website. If your images, it's like going to a website to find a doctor and you sell dogs. Guess what's going to happen? That person's going to leave, right? They're going to exit your site. And that also means that you've lost the opportunity to work with them, right? Which turns into dollars, right? If you don't attract the right clients, they don't resonate with what you're saying and what you're offering, right? They don't become a client and you don't have a profitable business, right? So it is a domino effect. And this is why, I always coach and teach our members, like, it's so important to not just build the business, right? That is very important, right? To have the courage and take the steps to do it, but you have to do it in the right order and in the right way. Because what happens is if you don't, you're going to go back and have to fix stuff. That costs money and that costs you time. And it also costs you momentum, which is, I think, more expensive than the time and the money. And that's a whole nother podcast. But so it's really important to get this right, and find out what their values are. What are they interested? What do they want to, what do they want, and need? And then that way you can make sure that you are aligned with your ideal clients and meeting them where they need to be met. Okay. So we talked a lot about some questions that you can start to ask yourself, but also ask yourself about your potential ideal client. And I want you to start here because it's really important that you do this work first and get clear on it. And it doesn't have to be, something super difficult. Just, go through the questions, put some thought behind it, and answer the questions, right? And you'll be surprised. Like when you read it back, you're like, oh, okay, I probably know more about my ideal client than I thought I did. But it's important to go through these steps because once you have a clear picture of who your ideal client is, then you can start to create what we call a detailed buyer persona or an avatar. You may have heard of it as an avatar, right? And so these personas can represent a fictional version or character, if you will, that embodies the traits and characteristics of your ideal clients. Okay. That way you can really kind of like get to know them, right? You really want to get to the point where it's like you feel like it's your girlfriend or your friend or your buddy who you've known for 20 years, right? That's how well you need to know who your ideal client is. Okay. So this exercise will help you humanize your target audience and really kind of put a face to this, all this research that you're going to do. Okay. So I want to help you like really actually put this into action because I think, again, a lot of times people get scared to even just start the process of doing this discovery work because they feel like, oh, it's going to be a lot of work or, oh, it's research, right? I want you to get that out your head, right? Think of it as like you're dating. You want to get to know somebody, right? You want to get to know your ideal client because you're going to be working with them and serving them, right? Hopefully for the rest of your life or for a long time until you retire from your business or you sell it or whatever you hand it down to your kids, whatever you decide to do, right? So this is important, right? This is a long-term relationship that you're building. So I want you to look at it that way, that it's that important to invest this time to get to know your ideal client. And so I want to share really quick a template that I actually provide our members in our program. And I'm going to share with you how you can actually get a copy of this. So I'm going to share what it looks like, though, first, so you can get an idea of how you can put this into action and actually start to kind of, flesh it out and write down your notes of like all the questions that I mentioned. So here's the template. Let me make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. Okay, so this is a template that I put together for our employee to designer members and program. It's called the avatar template, but this is a template that you can use. You can actually type into it as a PDF and you can put all of your research that you find into this template. So you can really personalize this avatar, this person, your ideal client, and get to know them. So it has client name, age. So these are some of the demographics that we talked about. Where do they live? Location, their marital status, children. How many children do they have? How much money do they make? Right. And then the number of homes they have. So this is really helpful because it helps you put it in so you really start to get a good idea of who they are. And then there's 4 quadrants here. And the first one talks about describing their situation. So like, what is their lifestyle right now? What's happening in their lives, right? And this is going to help uncover like, what are some of the problems that they're having and why they would need to come to you for your products or services, right? To help them meet that challenge and you be that solution for them. The other thing you want to look at or put in here is their passion. So what are they interested in? So this kind of goes back to some of the values that you're going to uncover based on that question that we talked about. And then how do they get information, right? So this is in relation to the question of, where do they spend their time online and offline, right? So how are they consuming information? And remember, you know, today, as I mentioned, it's a multifaceted, right? We have faceted, interactions with media. So we can be on our phones, our TV, watching TV and online all at the same time, right? It's crazy how much, technology has evolved. And so you want to really understand if they're on these electronics, where are they? Are they on social media? Are they on certain websites? Like, what are they looking at and how are they consuming information so that it'll help you to be able to meet them where they are online through your digital advertising, right? So remember, this is all a domino effect, right? This all is going to trickle down. And then the last quadrant is where you can enter their goals. So this is, thinking about what do they want to accomplish in life? What are their big aspirations, right? In my case, I help emerging entrepreneurs start and grow and scale a business, right? So I know that one of their goals is to have their own business. And maybe a goal might be to leave their 9 to 5 job at some point, or maybe not. Maybe they want to, have their job and build this business that maybe they can pass down as a legacy to their children, right? So understand what their goals are, understand what they want, why they don't have it yet, which could be maybe the solution that you provide, and what is it that they value. Okay. So I hope this is helpful. If you would like to, and this is the first time I've actually ever done this, but if you would like to get a copy of this, you can comment avatar on my Instagram page, and you will get I'll send you the details or a link so that you can actually download this PDF that's editable. You can create it. Oh, and the most important thing is there's a little area on here where you can put a picture. And let me just say, even the members that I work with and I coach, like, and I help them fill this out. Like, we work together on it and like they get their avatar all together and then they send it to me and there's no picture. Okay. So I can't leave this part out. Um, Even though if you're listening to this podcast and you can't see it, it's okay. Just comment avatar on my Instagram page, which is Monique Nicole Co. And you can get a copy of it. And you can see what I'm referencing, which is there's a spot for you to put a picture. And this is so important because even if you have all their details and you've gotten to know who your ideal client is, there is nothing like seeing this person and having a picture to put to all of this research that you've done and this, discovery work that you've done to get to know them. Right? So I highly encourage you, find a picture. You can find a picture on Google. You can Google, whatever. Let's just say, in my case, I've been giving the example of, an emerging entrepreneur, right? Or aspiring entrepreneur. Well, if that's your ideal client, like I would look for, maybe, and typically it's women. I work primarily with women. I also have worked with men as well, but most of the people that I work with are women. And so I would probably search, professional, um, you know, woman, and I would, I have a mix. I've worked with women, all over the world, from Africa to Canada to United States to England. So there's really kind of no ethnicity that is super particular, but I know that I would be, looking for a picture of a woman who's a professional, right? She knows what she wants. She has certain aspirations and goals. She wants to, create a healthy financial future for herself and her family, and she wants to start a business, right? And so I know kind of what that looks like. I know what she looks like. So once you've gotten clear on who he or she is as far as your ideal client, I want you to put a picture to the person, okay? This is really going to help you to really identify who they are and, make sure that all of this information is applied when you start to plan your marketing and have that domino effect happen in your business. All right. So I hope this helps you. There is another resource that I'm going to post in the show notes, where you can learn all about different types of generations, because I also believe this is important. And this is kind of going back to the research part, of doing this work, because you really have to understand kind of like from a 360-foot view level, like who are all the different types of people out there, right? So if you've ever heard of like, Gen X and, Y and all those different generations, that's what I'm talking about. Because you want to understand like who are, what's the difference between millennials versus, Gen X, right? Two different types of categories. And this research has been done for you, which is wonderful. And you can just read up on it just so you can get a, some understanding of like what are the different types of groups of people by class, by lifestyle, by demographics, different things like that. And where does your ideal most likely fall within one of those categories? So are they a millennial? Are they younger? Um, are they, a little older, or maybe they're retirees, right? Because again, their needs are going to look different, right? Their profile's going to look completely different. So it's really helpful to get a full view of all the different types of people out there. So then once you've done your work to identify your ideal client, then you can say, oh, they're more of a millennial, right? And it helps you just understand them even better. So I highly recommend that you uh, do that research, take a look at it. I'm going to post the link to the website in the show notes so you have it. And then don't forget, if you want to get a copy of the avatar template, I am doing this just for those listening on this podcast. I won't be sharing it otherwise. This is the first time I've ever done this. This is actually a tool that I provide only exclusively, typically to our members, but I'm going to share it with you. If you like it, just comment avatar, AVATR, in the comments on my Instagram page. I'm going to post a post in regards to this podcast, episode 4, and I will, uh, you know, not allow you to, but, I'll basically allow you to get a copy of this if you comment avatar. So just check that out. I'll post that probably on Thursday, the same day that this episode will be posted as well. So hopefully this helps, and I can't wait to see and hear all of the discoveries that you come up with in regards to your ideal client. And just remember, keep it simple. Don't overthink this. This is, fun, easy stuff. Just takes a little bit of lead work and a little bit of time and a little bit of thought. Okay. But if you're willing to invest those things for your business, then I promise you this process and doing this work will be well worth it. Because remember, this is the domino effect, right? And this is the beginning. This is the first domino that you got to put up straight and make sure that it stays up straight before you take the next step in building your business. So I have and truly just enjoyed this talk. I think this is really going to help a lot of people, because I, feel like this is one of those ambiguous topics that people don't want to really talk about, but it's needed. It's necessary to start and run a successful business. So, anyway, have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will talk to you next week. Take care.